What's up, dudes and dudettes? It's Jimmy, aka Zero Tolerance 55 here, continuing my BioShock Explained storyline series, continuing with the story of BioShock Infinite. Since this game is different in playstyle in comparison to the linear storylines of the first two BioShock games, I'm doing Infinite a little bit different. First, I'm going to do the videos explain all the events of the game itself. Then I'm going to make another video answering all the questions that people might have and also to explain all the connections to BioShock 1 and 2. The reason for this is that Infinite itself is not a linear storyline, so it might confuse people if I do it in chronological order, and also because I know some people got lost while playing it, so this makes it easier for them to figure out what may have confused them while playing. On a quick side note, I apologize for this video taking so long to come out. I just had a lot of personal things going on in my life, which took away my focus away from making videos. If you want to know more about that, check out my apology and explanation video. But anyway, now that the long intro is out of the way, let's jump into BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite opens on a man named Booker DeWitt riding a boat with a mysterious man and woman off the coast of Maine in the year 1912. It is revealed that Booker has been sent to rescue a woman named Elizabeth from the city of Columbia in order to wipe out a massive gambling debt he has accumulated. While on the boat, the woman hands Booker a box containing supplies for his mission, which include money, a loaded pistol, a code to enter Columbia, the key to Elizabeth's cell, a picture of the building in which she is located, and the coordinates to where he is to bring her in New York City. Eventually, they reach the lighthouse in the middle of the ocean, and Booker disembarks to continue his journey. Upon entering, he makes his way to the top. He then enters the code given to him, and the shuttle that he sits in launches upward into the sky, causing Booker to lose his pistol as he enters the floating city of Columbia. When he enters the floating city, Booker quickly realizes that Columbia is run by a man named Zachary Comstock, and that his followers see him as a holy man and a prophet of God. As Booker continues, he is told he must be baptized in order to explore the rest of the city, so he agrees, and the preacher nearly drowns him as he does so. Booker falls unconscious during this and falls into a dream where he is back in his office, hearing the phrase, "Bring us the girl, wipe away the debt." Still in this dream state, he opens the door to his office and finds himself overlooking New York City in the year of 1984, which is under attack by the city of Columbia. Booker then wakes up and begins to make his way through the city, realizing he was there during Columbia's Fair Day. He receives a telegram from a woman named Rosalind Lutece, who warns him not to alert Comstock of his presence and not to pick number 77. Confused by this, he continues on. He later runs into Rosalind and her twin brother Robert, who ask him to flip a coin. He does so and continues on his way, and after meeting the Latisse twins, he attends a raffle and ends up choosing number 77 like he was told not to. This wins him the first opportunity to throw a ball at an interracial couple, which is just the beginning of the racist undertones within Columbia. Before he has the chance to throw the ball, he is seized by the police when they notice that he has the initials AD branded onto his hand. Unbeknownst to Booker, Comstock prophesies to his followers that a man with these markings on his hand would bring about the city's downfall by leading the Lamb of Columbia away. The Lamb being Elizabeth. You can find that out later. I'm just throwing that out there now. Booker fights his way free and escapes into the streets of Columbia, eventually running into the Latisse twins again, who supply him with a shield. He continues his quest to Monument Island to rescue Elizabeth, when he is contacted by Comstock himself, who tells him that he knows all about Booker's past and that his journey will only end in blood. Booker makes his way to Monument Island and finally meets Elizabeth, who is unaware that she has apparently been observed as a test subject her whole life. Booker then witnesses why, when she rips open a portal through time and space that leads to Paris. They enter the library within her holding cell, and Elizabeth, though frightened at first, becomes relieved when she realizes Booker is a real person, revealing that she has little to no contact with the outside world at all. Booker uses the key he was given to allow him and Elizabeth to escape from Monument Island just as her protector/warden, the metal massive creature known as the Songbird, shows up. While fleeing the creature, the two of them end up in Battleship Bay, and Booker ends up unconscious yet again. He slips back into the same dream of being in the office, this time with Elizabeth and the Lutece twins present, and they once again tell him, "Bring us the girl, wipe away the debt." Booker opens the door to his office, calling out the name Anna as he wakes up with Elizabeth kneeling over him. As he is assuring her that he is all right, he spots an airship named the First Lady's Aerodrome. and sees it as a way to escape, so he convinces Elizabeth to come with him so they can go to Paris, a place she has always dreamed of traveling to. As they travel through the city, Booker and Elizabeth learn that the city is engulfed in a civil war between the founders, who were the rich and predominantly white upper class led by Comstock, and the Vox Populi, who are the multiracial, multinational, lower and working classes. Both factions want access to Elizabeth because they believe her powers would turn the tide of the war in whoever's way had her. As they continue on, Booker begins to realize just how powerful Elizabeth is as she opens tears in order to manipulate the environment as they fight their way through numerous situations. As they make their way to the aerodome, they realize that they need a specific vigor in order to reach it. They detour into the Hall of Heroes to acquire it, and while there they learn about the history of Comstock and the creation of Columbia. They discover that Comstock was present at the Battle of the Wounded Knee, even though Booker doesn't remember him being there at all since he himself was also there. They learn that later in his life, Comstock claims to have been visited by the Archangel Columbia, who showed him a vision that included his future self in a floating city in the sky. This made Comstock believe he was a prophet of God and set forth to make the vision come true. Comstock then met quantum physicist Rosalind Lutece, who at the time had figured out a way to make matter float. The two of them worked with the U.S. Congress to fund and build Columbia in order to promote and share America's ideals and successes with the world, making it a floating propaganda machine. Once the city was finished in the year 1900, Comstock did take the floating city around the world, but ended up using it for different purposes. When the Boxer Rebellion in Peking, China, broke out, Comstock used Columbia to fire down upon the city. This caused chaos in the United States Congress, and they asked that the floating city be returned to the United States. Furious, Comstock refused and seceded from the United States because he felt their ideals were fading and the city vanished into the clouds, never to be seen again. Over the course of the next 11 years, Columbia became a hotbed of racism, ultranaturalism, and religious radicals, which eventually led to the rebellion that was going on in the present time. This rebellion began when Daisy Fitzroy, who was a servant of Comstock's, was accused of murdering Comstock's wife, Lady Comstock. Fitzroy, enraged by this apparently false accusation, rallied supporters to remove Comstock from power, and thus the Vox Populi were born. After learning all this, Booker and Elizabeth encounter another soldier who was present at Wounded Knee, a man named Cornelius Slate, who has been working with the Vox against Comstock. Slate confirms what Booker already knew by telling him that Comstock is a liar and was never present at Wounded Knee. Slate doesn't trust Booker and has his men attack him and Elizabeth. The two fight their way through the Hall of Heroes when they discover that Elizabeth is actually Comstock's daughter, which explains why Comstock is doing everything in his power to get her back. It is revealed that Comstock wants her to take his place leading Columbia and, in his words, drown in flames the mountains of men. After this revelation, the two of them meet Slate himself, and the soldier and his men attack. They defeat Slate and his men, leaving the player the choice of killing or sparing Slate, neither of which have been confirmed as the canon story yet. Anyway, after they defeat Slate, the two acquire the shock jockey vigor that they needed to make their way back to the aerodome. Once inside, Booker sets the coordinates, but Elizabeth catches on that they are the coordinates for New York, not Paris, and she realizes that Booker's been lying to her all along. In anger, she picks up a wrench and knocks Booker unconscious before leaving the Zeppelin, which the Vox Populi then capture, with Booker still inside. When Booker awakens, he meets the leader of the Vox Populi, Daisy Fitzroy. They make a deal. If Booker will retrieve the weapons for the Vox from the gunsmith Chen Lin, then the Vox will let Booker take the Zeppelin. Booker is dropped off in Finkton, a part of the city run by Jeremiah Fink, a businessman in Columbia responsible for many inventions such as the skylines used to travel around the city, Vigors, and the Songbird. There will be a lot more on Jeremiah Fink in my video about the connections between BioShock 1 and 2, so stay tuned for that. It's here in this part of the city that Booker once again meets up with Elizabeth, who only agrees to help him so she can reach Paris. They make their way through the industrial zones and shanty towns of the poor, and they eventually find Chen Lin, who has been tortured to death. The Latisse twins suddenly appear yet again and reveal that Chen Lin is alive and dead in other worlds, which causes nothing but confusion to Booker, but to Elizabeth it makes sense. She then opens a tear into another world/dimension where Lynn is not dead. However, this causes a paradox because everyone who died in the original timeline, we'll call it Timeline A, the timeline that we've existed on so far, remembers being both dead and alive in this new timeline they jump into. We'll call it Timeline B. This is where the game starts getting really confusing. This causes all those people that had died in the original timeline to have massive headaches and be seemingly insane as their minds cope with the fact that they have memories of being both alive and dead. In this second timeline, Timeline B, that Elizabeth and Booker have found their way into, Lynn's weapons have been confiscated by the police, and when Booker and Elizabeth find them, they can't move them. So once again, Elizabeth relies on her powers and opens yet another tear into a timeline where the Vox have the weapons. We will call this Timeline C. In this third timeline, the Vox are in open, violent rebellion against Jeremiah Fink and the Founders, and the duo of Elizabeth and Booker also learn that in this timeline, Booker has died a hero for the Vox cause. The two of them make their way through the war-torn city and eventually encounter Daisy Fitzroy, who claims that she saw Booker die, so she speculates that he must be an imposter. She has her men attack them while she goes after Fink. Booker and Elizabeth dispatch her men and catch up to Fitzroy just as she kills Fink. She then threatens to kill an upper-class little boy as a shot against the Founders, but Elizabeth sneaks around behind her and stabs her in the back, killing her, making Daisy Fitzroy the first person Elizabeth has ever killed. It is at this point I'm going to go ahead and stop part one. I went a little bit long, but I know a lot of people waited for it, and I wanted to go into a lot of detail. Part 2 is going to finish up BioShock Infinite and to the end of the game, and then the next 1 or 2 videos, it's going to be answering any questions that I see or explain the connections between the two games. A lot of theories are out there, so I want to go into that. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you have any questions about BioShock Infinite, put it down in the comments, because I'm looking forward to answering them. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you later.